My phone buzzed while I was buried in spreadsheets. A text from my brother. Monica 7:00 p.m. at the house. Huge birthday surprise. I'm Monica Grant, 29, a Houston accountant always bailing out my family's financial messes. My brother's failed startups. My mom's shopping sprees. My dad's bad investments. Surprises from them meant one thing: trouble. If it were you and you got a surprise message like this from your family, what would you do? Leave a comment and don't look away, because what happens next will shock you. I could have ignored it, but they'd just keep calling. So I drove to our family's Houston townhouse. At 7:05 p.m., I rang the doorbell. My brother flung the door open, grinning too wide. "Happy birthday, sis," he said, pulling me into a stiff hug. The living room erupted with surprise from relatives I barely saw their smiles forced. My mom handed me wine I didn't want. My dad's handshake felt like a warning. My aunt lingered, eyes uneasy. Then I saw a document on the coffee table, half hidden under a napkin. My pulse quickened, but I kept my cool. I'd seen their tricks before, slipping loan papers into family dinners. "Time for gifts," my brother announced, sliding the document toward me. "Just a quick signature, Monica, for the family's future." His voice was all charm, but his eyes were sharp. I picked up the paper, hands steady. The title read, Family Trust Agreement. Nice try, but I wasn't born yesterday. I smiled, leaning in like I'd play along. "For the family, huh?" I said. A heavy silence filled the entire room. My brother Kyle broke it first, his grin faltering. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Monica?" he asked, voice sharp but laced with fake confusion. I didn't answer, just tucked my phone away and stepped into the crowded living room. The air felt thick, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for my next move. I scanned the faces: my mom poised as ever, clutching her wine glass a little too tight. My dad shifting awkwardly by the couch. My Aunt Diane hovering near the back, with a look I couldn't quite read. The coffee table sat in the center, that family trust agreement staring up at me like a dare. I forced a smile, the kind I'd perfected after years of dodging their schemes. "So, this is my big birthday gift," I said, picking up the document. My fingers brushed the crisp paper, but my eyes locked on Kyle. He leaned forward, all charm. "Come on, sis, it's just paperwork to keep things fair. You know, for the family's future." His words dripped with that practiced sincerity he used when he needed cash. My mom Cheryl chimed in, her voice smooth as silk. "Monica, honey, it's what your grandpa would have wanted, us all working together." My dad Philip nodded stiffly, avoiding my gaze. Diane stayed quiet, her fingers twisting a napkin. I flipped through the pages, skimming the legal jargon. It wasn't hard to spot the real intent. Buried in fine print was a clause to transfer my share of Grandpa Edward Stone's estate to a trust controlled by Kyle. My share. The one I'd been told was safe after his death last year. My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral. They thought I'd just sign it away, caught up in birthday cheer. They thought wrong. "Let me get this straight," I said, raising my voice just enough for everyone to hear. I held the document up, pointing to the title. "This family trust agreement is me giving up everything Grandpa left me. Right." The room stirred, cousins exchanging glances and Uncle clearing his throat. Kyle's jaw clenched, but he forced a laugh. "You're overthinking it, Monica. It's just to simplify things." "Simplify?" I echoed, my tone sharp. "Like how I simplified your last business flop by covering your debts." A murmur rippled through the guests. Kyle's face reddened, but he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't make a scene, sis. Sign it. For Mom, for Dad, for all of us." Cheryl added, "We're family, Monica. Don't be selfish." Philip finally spoke, his voice gruff. "It's the right thing to do." I let the moment stretch, their words hanging in the air. Then I smiled wider, almost laughing. "You want me to sign, okay?" I grabbed a pen from the table, hovering it over the paper. Gasps escaped the crowd, some relieved, some confused. Kyle's eyes lit up greedy. But before the pen touched the page, I dropped it and pulled out my phone again. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the room, let's talk about this instead. I opened Cynthia Ward's text, the lawyer I hadn't met, but whose name carried Grandpa's trust. I held the screen high, letting everyone see the words, "Don't sign anything." My Aunt Diane's eyes widened, her napkin falling to the floor. Cheryl's glass trembled. Philip froze. Kyle opened his mouth, but no words came out. I leaned forward, staring him down. "You thought I wouldn't notice," I said. "Nice try, Kyle." The room went dead silent, every eye on me. I left the house without looking back. The weight of their stares lingered as I drove to a steakhouse across Houston, where my best friend Brenda was waiting. I spotted her at a corner booth, her warm smile a stark contrast to the fake ones I'd just faced. Brenda Lee had been my rock since college, always ready to listen when my family pushed too far. I slid into the seat across from her, my hands still shaky from the showdown. "Monica, you look like you just walked out of a war zone," Brenda said, pushing a glass of water toward me. I managed a half laugh, then pulled out my phone and opened Cynthia Ward's text. "Read this," I said, sliding it across the table. Brenda's eyes narrowed as she scanned the lawyer's warning, "Don't sign anything." She leaned back, the eyebrows raised. "Okay, spill. What happened at that so-called party?" I took a deep breath and recounted the night, not the whole story, just the key parts. The document labeled Family Trust Agreement that wasn't about trust at all. Kyle's smooth talk, Mom's fake sweetness, Dad's silent support, and Aunt Diane's odd hesitation. Brenda listened, her jaw tightening with every word. "They tried to trick you into giving up Grandpa Edward's inheritance?" she asked, voice low. I nodded. "Kyle thought he could charm me into signing." Again. Brenda shook her head, her curls bouncing. "He's got some nerve. What's in that text from Cynthia? Who even is she?" I explained that Cynthia Ward was Grandpa's lawyer, someone I'd never met but whose message came just in time. "I don't know what she's got, but it's enough to make Kyle nervous," I said. Brenda grinned. "Good. He deserves it. What's your next move?" I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I needed to confront Kyle directly. No more games. I pulled up his number, my thumb hovering over the call button. Brenda raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to do this now?" she asked. I nodded, hitting call before I could second-guess myself. The line rang twice before Kyle picked up, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Monica, you okay? You left the party so fast." "Cut it, Kyle," I said, my tone sharp. "That document wasn't about family. You wanted my inheritance." He laughed, but it was forced, shaky. "You're blowing this out of proportion, sis. It's just paperwork to keep things fair." I gripped the phone tighter. "Fair, like how you've been fair, racking up debts and expecting me to fix them." Kyle's tone shifted, softer now, manipulative. "Come on, Monica, we're family. You know I'd never hurt you. Mom and Dad need this. We all do." His words hit like a punch, the same guilt trip he'd used for years. Brenda rolled her eyes, mouthing, "He's lying." I took a breath, steadying myself. "You want to talk family?" I said. "Let's talk about the $15,000 you owe from your last sure thing venture. I've got the invoices, Kyle, past due. All of them." The line went quiet. I could almost hear his panic through the silence. "You wouldn't," he finally said, voice low, almost a growl. "Oh, I would," I replied. "And I've got more where that came from." I hung up before he could respond, my heart racing but my resolve firm. Brenda leaned forward, grinning. "That's my girl," she said. I wasn't done yet, but I was ready for whatever came next. I woke up early, my mind still buzzing from last night's call with Kyle. I was driving to the energy company's downtown Houston office where Cynthia Ward had agreed to meet me. I'd never met her, but Grandpa Edward's lawyer held the key to whatever he'd left behind. Her text, "Don't sign anything," had saved me at that sham of a birthday party, and now I needed answers. I stepped into the sleek office, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Cynthia greeted me at the reception desk, her handshake firm and her eyes sharp. "Monica Grant, I presume?" she said, her voice calm but authoritative. I nodded, following her to a small conference room. Papers and a laptop were neatly arranged on the table, and a single envelope caught my eye, sealed with my name in Grandpa Edward's familiar handwriting. "Cynthia, what's this about?" I asked, sitting across from her. She opened the envelope and slid a handwritten letter toward me. "Your grandfather was a meticulous man," she said. "He knew your family better than they knew themselves." I unfolded the letter, my breath catching as I recognized Edward's steady script. It began, "To Monica, my brightest star. If you're reading this, you've already seen their true colors." The letter laid it all bare. Edward Stone had set up a trust to protect me, ensuring I'd control his energy investment fund worth millions. Kyle, Mom, and Dad had no claim unless I signed it away. But there was a catch. If anyone challenged the trust in court, half the assets would go to a Houston children's charity. I looked up at Cynthia, stunned. "He planned this?" I asked. She nodded. "Edward suspected Kyle would try something. That's why he hired me." I leaned back, processing the words. Grandpa had always been my biggest supporter, the one who taught me to balance a checkbook at 10 and cheered when I got my accounting degree. He'd seen how Kyle's schemes drained me, how Mom's spending and Dad's bad investments leaned on my income. This trust was his way of giving me a shield and a sword. Cynthia tapped her laptop, pulling up trust documents. "Here's the legal side," she said. "You have full control of the fund, effective immediately. Kyle's name appears nowhere, neither do Cheryl's or Philip's." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "But they'll fight this, Monica. That family trust agreement was their first move. They'll try again." I clenched the letter, anger flaring. "They've been trying for years," I said. "Kyle's debts, Mom's shopping, Dad's deals, I've been their bank." Cynthia's lips curved slightly. "Not anymore. Edward made sure of that." She slid another document across, a power of attorney giving me authority to manage the fund and block any challenges. I scanned it, my mind racing. "What's our next step?" I asked. Cynthia leaned forward, her voice low. "We prepare for their pushback. Kyle's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. We'll use that." We spent the next hour strategizing. Cynthia suggested notifying the trust's board to lock Kyle out of any financial moves. We drafted a letter to the family stating my control and the charity clause, to be presented at a meeting later that day. "They'll try to guilt you," Cynthia warned. "Kyle's good at that." I nodded, thinking of his call last night, his fake pleas about family. "I'm done falling for it," I said. As I left the office, Edward's letter felt heavy in my bag. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for the life Grandpa wanted for me. I was back at my desk by noon, Edward's letter tucked safely in my bag. The morning with Cynthia had lit a fire in me, but I barely had time to process it before my office door swung open. My mom stood there, her designer purse clutched tight, her face a mask of concern. "Monica, honey, can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, almost pleading. I knew that tone. Years of it had trained me to spot the act. "Sit down, Mom," I said, keeping my voice even. She settled into the chair across from me, smoothing her skirt like she was about to deliver a speech. "I owe you an apology," she began, eyes glistening with what looked like tears. "Last night was a mistake. Kyle got carried away, but we only want what's best for the family." Her words were polished, practiced, but they didn't land. I'd heard this script before, every time she needed me to cover her latest shopping spree. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. "What's best for the family?" I repeated, my tone sharp. "Like how you charged $10,000 to my card for your Paris trip last year." Cheryl's smile froze, her fingers tightening on her purse. I opened my laptop, pulling up a folder I'd kept for moments like this. "I've got the invoices right here," I said, turning the screen toward her. "Dior, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, all billed to me." "Want to explain?" Cheryl's face flushed, but she recovered quickly, her voice rising. "Monica, that was a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back." I cut her off, scrolling through the list. 3,000 for a handbag, 500 for shoes, another 2,000 for jewelry. You didn't pay back a cent. Her mouth opened, then closed, her eyes darting away. I didn't let up. "You thought I'd sign away Grandpa's trust to keep funding this? I'm done, Mom." She stood her chair, scraping the floor. "You're being unfair," she snapped, dropping the tearful act. "We're your family. You owe us." I stood too, meeting her gaze. "I don't owe you anything," I said, my voice steady. "Grandpa made sure of that." Cheryl's eyes narrowed, but she didn't argue. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving the door ajar. I sank back into my chair, my pulse racing but my resolve firm. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Dad. "Monica, let's talk over dinner tonight. Just you and me. We can fix this." I stared at the words, recognizing the same old playbook. Philip had stayed quiet at the party, letting Kyle and Cheryl take the lead, but now he was trying his own angle. I wasn't falling for it. I opened my accounting software, pulling up a file I'd compiled over the years, a detailed list of the family's debts, all tied to me. Kyle's $15,000 from his failed startup, already mentioned last night. Cheryl's $20,000 in luxury purchases. Philip's $25,000 from a shady real estate deal I'd bailed out. I attached the file to a text and typed, "Dad, no dinner. Here's what you, Mom, and Kyle owe me. Stop manipulating me or this goes to a lawyer." I hit send, my fingers steady. Philip didn't reply. I leaned back, staring at the screen, knowing this wasn't over. I arrived at the company's conference room by 5:50 p.m., my laptop ready, and Edward's letter in my hand. The boardroom was set for the family meeting Cynthia had arranged, and I was done playing defense. Kyle, Cheryl, Philip, and Aunt Diane filed in, their faces a mix of defiance and unease. Cynthia stood by my side, her presence a quiet anchor. I powered up the projector, ready to end this. I started with Edward's letter, projecting it onto the screen. His words filled the room. "To Monica, my brightest star. If you're reading this, you've seen their true colors." I let that sink in, watching Kyle shift in his seat. "Grandpa knew you'd try to take what's mine," I said, my voice steady. "This trust gives me control of his energy investment fund. Not you, Kyle. Not Mom. Not Dad." Kyle scoffed, leaning back. "You're twisting his words, Monica. That fund's for the family." I clicked to the next slide, scanned financial records from Cynthia's files. "Really?" I said. "Then why did you try to transfer $50,000 from Grandpa's account last year, Kyle, without telling me?" The room tensed. Cheryl's eyes widened and Philip looked away. I kept going, showing receipts of Cheryl's $30,000 shopping sprees and Philip's $40,000 failed investments, all tied to my accounts. "Enough," Cheryl snapped, standing. "You're embarrassing us, Monica. We're your family." I held her gaze, unflinching. "Family doesn't trick me into signing away millions," I said. I clicked to the trust's terms, full control to me, with a clause that 50% goes to charity if anyone challenges it. "You want to fight this?" I asked. "Half goes to a Houston Children's Fund. Your call." Philip spoke up, his voice low. "Monica, let's talk privately. We can work this out." I shook my head. "No more talks, Dad. I've paid your debts for years. It stops now." That's when Aunt Diane stood, her hands trembling. "Monica's right," she said, her voice cracking. "Kyle pressured me to back that family trust agreement. He said it was the only way to save the family. I'm sorry, Monica." The room went quiet, the air heavy with Diane's words. Kyle's face paled, his usual charm gone. "Diane, don't," he muttered, but she kept going. "You told me Monica wouldn't care, Kyle. You lied." I looked at Aunt Diane, grateful for her courage. "Thank you," I said softly. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Cynthia stepped forward, her tone sharp. "This ends here. Monica controls the fund effective immediately. Any further attempts to manipulate or challenge the trust will trigger legal action. Fraud, coercion, unauthorized transfers, those carry consequences. Neem." She slid a document across the table outlining potential penalties. Kyle stared at it, silent. Cheryl's shoulders slumped. Philip didn't move. I took a breath, standing taller. "I'm cutting all financial support," I said. "No more loans, no more bailouts. You're on your own." Kyle opened his mouth, but no words came. Cheryl grabbed her purse, muttering under her breath. Philip just sat there, defeated. I turned off the projector, Edward's letter fading from the screen. This wasn't just about money. It was about taking back my life. 3 months after the meeting, I sat at the helm of Grandpa Edward's energy investment fund. The weight of that conference room showdown had faded, replaced by a new sense of purpose. I'd taken full control, steering the fund with the precision I'd honed as an accountant. My first move was honoring Edward's vision. I founded the Edward Stone Foundation, a nonprofit teaching financial literacy to Houston's youth. Every workshop we launched felt like a nod to the man who'd taught me to stand firm. Kyle, meanwhile, was drowning in his own mess. Creditors came knocking, filing lawsuits over the $15,000 he'd borrowed for his latest failed venture, the one I'd called him out on during our phone call. Court notices piled up, and his charm couldn't save him this time. I didn't offer a dime. He'd tried to reach out once, leaving a voicemail full of excuses, begging for a loan. I deleted it without replying. His schemes had no place in my life anymore. Cheryl and Philip weren't faring much better. Without my financial support, Cheryl's luxury shopping sprees stopped cold. Her credit cards were maxed out, and the designer bags she'd flaunted were now gathering dust. Philip's real estate ventures collapsed without my bailouts, his $25,000 debt from that shady deal still unpaid. They sent texts asking for family meetings to clear the air. I ignored them. Edward's letter had shown me their true priorities, and I wasn't going back. Aunt Diane, though, became my unexpected ally. After her confession at the meeting, we'd started talking regularly. She'd apologized again, her voice heavy with regret, for letting Kyle pressure her. "I should have stood up sooner," she told me over coffee one morning. I squeezed her hand. "You did when it mattered, Aunt Diane." We were rebuilding step by step, and her support meant more than I could say. Brenda, my rock, was there through it all. We met weekly, sometimes at the steakhouse where I'd spilled my heart after the party. She'd cheer every milestone, the foundation's first workshop, my first board meeting as fund manager. "You're unstoppable, Monica," she said one evening, raising her glass. I laughed, clinking mine against hers. "Only because you've got my back." With Brenda and Diane by my side, I was building a new family, one based on trust, not manipulation. I thought back to that birthday party, the moment I'd held up Cynthia's text and silenced the room. It wasn't just about outsmarting Kyle's scheme, it was about breaking free. For years, I'd let guilt and family ties pull me into their chaos, covering debts, signing checks, fixing their mistakes. Edward's trust gave me the power to say no, but it was his belief in me that gave me the courage. I'd learned to set boundaries to protect my own future. Financial independence wasn't just about money, it was about freedom. The Edward Stone Foundation grew, hosting seminars on budgeting and debt management. I spoke at one, sharing my story, not the details, but the lesson. Know your worth, I told the crowd. Set boundaries, plan your finances, and don't let anyone guilt you into giving up what's yours. The applause felt like Edward's voice cheering me on. I wasn't just managing a fund, I was building a legacy.